Hey guys, me again. Let's do lesson 3, triangles. There are two types or two ways that you can classify triangles. They can be classified using the side lengths and their angle measures. So first let's take a look at how they can be classified named off of their angles within them. So we have an acute triangle. That means all of the angles within are acute angles. We have an obtuse triangle. There is one obtuse angle. If there's an obtuse angle in that triangle, then it automatically becomes an obtuse triangle. We have a right triangle. Again, if there is a one angle that is right, then that makes it a right triangle. And then we have an equiangular triangle. That means all of the angles within are congruent. And remember, that's what those red tick marks there mean, is that they are congruent to each other. Now, besides just looking at the angles, it can also be named based off of its sides. So looking at its relationship for its sides. If there's a triangle with no congruent sides, they're all different measures, we call that a scalene triangle. There's 0 congruent sides there. An isosceles triangle means there are 2 congruent sides. You can see by these tick marks, that's showing that those 2 sides are congruent. And lastly, if all of the sides are congruent, all 3 sides of the triangle, we call that an equilateral triangle. So let's do some examples here. First one, we have this pink triangle here. We have a 115 degree, 40 degree, and a 25 degree angle. So first look at the angles. I notice that this is an obtuse angle. So that means I'm going to identify it as an obtuse triangle. Now, that's how I name it based off of its angles. Now let me look at its sides. Are any of the sides congruent? Well, I don't see any of those tick marks showing that any are congruent, so this would be a scalene triangle. So we name it with 2 names, an obtuse scalene triangle. Next, let's classify this green triangle over here. So we have this green triangle, and I notice that it's showing that 2 of the angles are congruent. Okay, it's showing that this and this angle are congruent. Now, I also notice that those are acute angles. Now, if those 2 are acute, then that means this last angle up here has to be acute as well, and it also looks acute. It might not be the same measure, it may not be congruent, so they're all not equiangular, but they are all acute. So I would name this as an acute for its angles. And now let me take a look at its sides. I notice that 2 of the sides are congruent, so that's an isosceles triangle. So this is an acute isosceles triangle. So again, we name it based off of its sides and based off of its angles.